Too late reading this one. Let me get another glass of water. And pour myself some more champagne. Ooh. Poured too fast, not against the side of the glass. And it filled up my flute all too quickly. With foam and bubbles. Alright. Okay. Cheers to anyone, for the new year comes in an hour and 5 minutes. Alright. So, The Magic Shop by H.G. Wells. I had seen the magic shop from afar several times. I had passed it once or twice. A shop window of alluring little objects. Magic balls, magic hens, wonderful cones, ventriloquist dolls. The material of the basket trick, the packs of cards that looked alright, and that sort of thing. But I never thought of going in until one day, almost without warning, Gip hauled me by my finger right at the window and so conducted himself there was nothing for me to do but take him in. I had not thought the place was there, to tell the truth. A modest-sized frontage in Regent Street, between the picture shop and the place where the chicks run about just sort of patent incubators. But there it was, sure enough. I had fancied it down. It was over near the circus, or round the corner in Oxford Street, or even in Holborn. Always one over the way, and a little inaccessible. Had to been. Something of the mirage in its position, but here it was, now, quite indisputably. The fat end of Gip's pointing finger made a noise upon the glass. "If I was rich," said Gip, dabbing a finger at the disappearing egg, "I'd buy myself that, and that," which was the crying baby, very human, and that, which was a mystery and so-called a neat card asserted, "Buy one and astonish your friends." Anything will disappear under one of those cones. I've read about it in a book. And here, Dada, is the vanishing halfpenny. Only they've put it up this way so we can't see how it's done. Gip, dear boy, inherits his mother's breeding, and he did not propose to enter the shop or worry in any way. Only, quite unconsciously he lugged my finger downward and made his interest clear. "That," he said, and pointed out the magic bottle. "If you'd had that," I said, which promising inquiry looked up with sudden radiance. "I could show it to Jessie," he said, thoughtful as ever of others. "It's less than 100 days to your birthday, Gibbles," I said, and laid my hand on the door handle. Gip made no answer, but his grip tightened on my finger, and so we came into the shop. It was no common shop, this. It was a magic shop, and all the prancing precedence Gip would have taken the matter of mere toys was wanting. He left the burden of the conversation to me. It was a little, narrow shop, not very well lit, and the doorbell pinged with a plaintive note as it closed behind us. For a moment or so, we were alone and could glance about us. There was a tiger in papier-mâché on the glass case that covered the low counter. A grave, kind-eyed tiger that waggled its head in a methodical manner. There were several crystal spears, a china hand holding magic cards, a stock of magic fish bowls, various sizes, and a modest magic hat that shamelessly displayed its springs. On the floor, magic mirrors, one to draw you out long and thin, one to swell your head and vanish your legs, and one to make you short and fat like a drought. Other were laughing at these shopmen, I suppose, came in. At any rate, there he was, behind the counter, a curious, sallow, dark man with one ear larger than the other, and a chin like a toe cap of a boot. "What can we have the pleasure?" he said, spreading his long magic fingers on the glass case. And so, with a start, we were well aware of him. "I want," I said, "to buy my little boy a few simple tricks." "Legerdemain?" he asked. "Mechanical? Domestic?" "Anything amusing?" said I. Said the shopman, and scratched his head for a moment, as if thinking. Then, quite distinctly, he drew from his head a glass ball. "Something in this way," he said, and held it out. The action was unexpected. I had seen the trick before, done in entertainment endless times before. It's a part of the common side of conjurers, but I had not expected it here. "That's good," I said with a laugh. "Isn't it?" said the shopman. Gip stretched out his disengaged hand to take the object and found merely a blank palm. "It's in your pocket," said the shopman, and there it was. "How much will that be?" "We make no charge for glass balls," said the shopman politely. "We get them." He picked one out from his elbow as he spoke. "Free." He produced another from the back of his neck and laid it beside his predecessor on the counter. Gip regarded his glass ball sagely and directed his look of inquiry at the two on the counter, and finally brought his round-eyed scrutiny to the shopman, who smiled. "You may have those too," said the shopman. "And, if you don't mind, one from my mouth, so." Gip counseled me mutely a moment, and then in a profound silence put away the 4 balls, resumed my reassuring finger, and nerved himself for the next event. "We get all our smaller tricks in that way," the shopman remarks. I laughed in the manner of one who subscribes to a jest, instead of going to the wholesale course. Of course it's cheaper. In a way, though we pay in the end. But not so heavily as people suppose. Our lodger tricks and daily provisions, all the things we want, we get out of that hat. And you know, sir, if you'll excuse me saying, there isn't a wholesale shop. Not for genuine magic goods, sir. I don't know if you notice our inscription. The genuine magic shop. He drew a business card from his cheek and handed it to me. "Genuine," he said with his finger on the word and entered. "There is absolutely no deception, sir." He seemed to be carrying out the joke pretty thoroughly, I thought. He turned to Gip with a smile of remarkable affability. "You know, you are the right sort of boy." I was surprised at his knowing that, because in the interest of discipline we keep it a rather secret even at home. But Gip received it in unflinching silence, receiving a steadfast eye on him. "It's only the right sort of boy that gets through that doorway." And, as if by way of illustration, there came a rattling at the door, and a living, squeaking voice could be faintly heard. "Yar, I want to go in there, Dada. I want to go in there. Nyah." And then the accents of a downtrodden parent urging consolation to the population. "But it's locked, Edward," he said. "But it isn't," said I. "It is, sir," said the shopman. "Always for that sort of child." And as he spoke, we had a glimpse of the other youngster, a little white-faced, pallid from sweet-eating and over-sapid food, and distorted by evil passions, a ruthless little egotist, pawing at the enchanted pain. "It's no good, sir," said the shopman as I moved my natural helpfulness downwards, and presently the spoilt child was carried off howling. "How do you manage that?" I said, breathing a little more freely. "Magic," said the shopman, with a careless wave of his hand, and behold, sparks of colored fire flew from his fingers and vanished into the shadows of the shop. "You were saying," he said, addressing himself to Gip, "before you came in, you would like to buy one and astonish your friends boxes?" Gip, after a gallant effort, said, "Yes." "It's in your pocket." And, leaning over the counter, he really had an extraordinarily long body. This amazing person produced the article in the customary conjurer's manner. "Paper," he said, and took a sheet out of the empty hat with springs. "String," and behold, his mouth was a string box from which he drew an unending thread, which he had tied his parcel bit off, it seemed to me, swallowed back the ball of string. Then he lit a candle at the nose from the ventriloquist dummy, struck one of his fingers, which had become sealing wax red, into the flame, and sealed the parcel. Then there was the disappearing egg. He remarked, and produced one from with my coat breast, and packed it also. And also the crying baby, very human. I handed each parcel to Gip as it was ready, and he clasped them to his chest. He said very little, but his eyes were eloquent. The clutch of his arms was eloquent. He was in the playground of unspeakable emotion. These, you know, were real magics. Then, with a start, I discovered something moving in my hat. Something soft and jumpy. I whipped it off. A ruffled pigeon, no doubt a Confederate, dropped out and ran on the counter, and went, I fancy, into a cardboard box behind the papier-mâché tiger. "Tut, tut," the shopman dexterously relieving me of my headdress. "Careless bird, and, as I live, nesting." He shook my hat, and shook out into his extended hand 2 or 3 eggs, a large marble, a watch, about half a dozen of the inevitable glass balls, and then a crumpled, crinkled paper. More and more and more, talking all the time in the way people neglect to brush their hats inside as well as out. Politely, of course, but with a certain personal application. All sorts of things accumulate, sir. Not you, of course, in particular. Nearly every customer. Astonishing what they carry about with them. The crumpled paper rose and built on the counter, more and more and more, until he was nearly hidden from us. He was altogether hidden, and still his voice went on and on. We none of us know where the fair semblance of a human being may conceal, sir. We are all then no better than the brushed exteriors, whited sculptures. His voice stopped, exactly like when you hit a neighbor's gramophone with a well-timed brick. The name, instant silence. The rustle of the paper stopped, and everything was still. Have you done with my hat? I said after an interval. There was no answer. I stared at Gip, and Gip stared at me. And there we were, our distortions in the magic mirrors, looking very rum and grave and quiet. I think we'll go now. Oh, hi there, Henny. Happy New Year to you as well. I've still got 54 minutes to go, but it's good to see you. I think we'll go now, I said. Will you tell me how much this all comes to? I said, with a rather louder note, I want the bill and my hat, please. Might have been a sniff from behind the paper pile. Look behind the paper counter, Grip. I think he's making fun of us. I led Gip round the head-wagging tiger. What do you think was there behind the counter? No one at all. Only my hat on the floor and a common conjurer's looped-eared white rabbit lost in meditation, and looking as stupid as crumbled only a conjurer's rabbit can do. I resumed my hat, and the rabbit lolloped a lobbit or so my way. Dada, said Gip in a guilty whisper. What is it, Gip? I said I do like this shop, Dada. Hope you're having a good night, Annie. So should I said to myself, if the counter wouldn't suddenly extend itself to shut one off from the door. But I didn't call Gip's attention to that. Pussy, he said with his hand out the rabbit came lopping past us. Pussy, do Gip a magic. And his eyes followed as it squeezed through a door I had certainly not remarked a moment before. And this door opened wider, and the man, with one ear larger than the other, appeared again. He was smiling still, but his eye met mine with something between amusement and defiance. You'd like to see our showroom, sir, he said with an innocent suavity. Gip tugged my finger forward. I glanced at the counter and met the shopman's eye. I was beginning to think the magic was a little too genuine. We haven't very much time, I said, but somehow we were inside the showroom before I could finish that. All goods of the same quality, said the shopman, rubbing his flexible hands together, and that is the best. Nothing in the place that isn't genuine magic. And warranted a thoroughly rum, excuse me, sir. I felt him pull at something that clung to my coat sleeve, and then I saw he held a little wriggling red demon by the tail. The little creature bit and fought and tried to get at his hand, and in a moment he tossed it carelessly behind the counter. No doubt the thing was only an instant twisted Ida rubber, but for a moment, and his gesture was exactly that of a man who handles some petty fighting vermin. I glanced at Gip, but Gip was looking at a magic rocking horse. I was glad he hadn't seen the thing. I say, I said in an undertone, indicating Gip and the red demon with my eyes. You haven't many things like that about, have you? None of ours. Probably brought it with you, said the shopman, also an undertone with more dazzling smile than ever. Astonishing what people will carry about them unawares. And then said to Gip, do you see anything you fancy here? There were many things that Gip fancied here. He turned to the astonishing tradesman with mingled confidence and respect. Is that a magic sword? He asked. A magic toy sword. It neither bends, breaks, nor cuts the fingers. It renders the bearer invincible to batter against anyone under 18, half a crown to 7, and 6 pence according to size. Those panaplies in the cards are for juvenile knights errant and very useful. Shield of safety, sandals of swiftness, helmet of invisibility. Oh, Daddy, gasped Gip. I turned to find out what they cost, but the shopman did not heed me. He had got Gip now. He had got him away from my finger. He had embarked upon the exposition of all his confounding stock, and nothing was going to stop him. Presumably, I saw the qualm of distrust and something very like jealousy that Gip had a hold of this person's figure, as usually he held mine. No doubt that fellow was interesting, I thought, and hadn't uninterestingly faked a lot of stuff. A lot of really good faked stuff, still. I wandered after them, saying very little, but keeping an eye on this prestigial fellow. After all, Gip was enjoying it, and no doubt when the time came to go, we should be able to go quite easily. It was a long and rambling place, that showroom, a gallery broken by stands and stalls and pillars and archways leading off to other departments, in which the queerest-looking assistants loafed and stared at one with perplexing mirrors and curtains. So perplexing indeed were these that I was presently unable to make out the door by which we had come. The shopman showed Gip magic trains that ran without steam or clockwork, just as you set the signals, and then some very, very, very valuable boxes of soldiers that came alive directly you took off the lid and said, I haven't myself a quick ear, but it was a tongue-twisting sound. But Gip, he had his mother's ear, got it in no time. Bravo, said the shopman, putting the men back in the box unceremoniously and handing it to Gip. Now, said the shopman, and in a moment Gip had made them all come alive again. You'll take the box, said the shopman. We'll take that box, I said, unless you charge us full value. Of course, I'd need a trust magnet. Dear heart, no. The shipman swept the little men again and took the lid, waved the box in the air. And it was in brown paper, tied up again, with Gip's full name and address on the paper. The shopman laughed at my amazement. This is the genuine magic, the real thing. It's a little too genuine for my taste, I said again. After that, he fell to showing Gip tricks, odd tricks, and still odder the way they were done. He explained them. He turned them inside out. There was a little dear chap nodding his busy bit of head in the sagest manner. I will not attend as well as I might. Hey presto, said the magic shopman, and then would not come the clear small hey presto of the boy, but I was distracted by other things. It was being born to me just how tremendously rum this place was. It was, so to speak, induated by a sense of rumminess. There was something a little rum about the fixtures even, about the ceiling, about the floor, about the casually distributed chairs. I had a queer feeling that whenever I wasn't looking at them straight, they went askew and moved about and played noiseless puss in the corner behind my back. And this cornice had a serpentine design with masks altogether too expressive for proper plaster. Then, abruptly, my attention was caught by one of the odd-looking assistants. He was some way off and evidently unaware of my presence. I saw a sort of three-quarter length of him over a pile of toys and through an arc. You know, he was leaning against a pillar in an idle sort of way, doing the most horrid thing with his features. The particularly horrid thing he did was with his nose. He did it just as he thought it was idle and wanted to amuse himself. First of all, it was a short, blobby nose. Then suddenly shot it out like a telescope. Then it flew off and became thinner and thinner until it was like a long, red, flexible whip. Like a thing in a nightmare it was. He flourished it about and flung it forth as a fly fisher flings his line. My instant thought was that Gip mustn't seen him. Turn about, and there was Gip, quite preoccupied with the shopman and thinking no evil. They were whispering together and looking at me. Gip was standing on a little stool. The shopman was holding a sort of big drum in his hand. Hide and seek, Dada, cried Gip. You're he. And before I could do anything to prevent it, the shopman clapped the big drum over him. And I saw it was up directly. Take that off, I cried. This instant. You'll frighten the boy. Take it off. The shopman, with the unequal ears, did so without a word, and held the big cylinder towards me to show its emptiness. The little stool was vacant. In that instant, my boy had utterly disappeared. You know, perhaps the sinister-looking something that comes like a hand out of it unseen and grips your heart. You know, it takes your common sense away and leaves you tense and deliberate, neither slow nor hasty, neither angry nor afraid. So it was with me. I came up to this grinning shopman and kicked his stool aside. Stop this folly, I said. Where is my boy? You'll see, he said, displaying the drum's interior. There is no deception. I put my hand to grip him, and he eluded me by dexterous movement. I snatched again, and he turned from me and pushed open a door to escape. "Stop," I said, and he laughed, receding. I leapt after him into the utter darkness. Thud. "Lord bless my heart, I didn't see you coming, sir." I was in Regent Street, and I had collided with a decent-looking working man, and a yard away, perhaps looking a little perplexed himself, was Gip. There was some sort of apology, and then Gip turned and came to me with a bright little smile, as though a moment he'd missed me. He was carrying 4 parcels in his arm. He secured immediate possession of my finger. For the second, I was rather at a loss. I stared round at the door of the magic shop, and behold, it was not there. No shop, no door, nothing, only the common plaster between where the shop they did sell pictures and the window with the chicks. I did the only thing possible in that mental tumult. I walked straight to the curbstone and held up my umbrella for a cab. "Handsome," said Gip, a note of culminating exultation. I helped him in, recalled my address with effort, and got in also. Something unusual proclaimed itself in my coat-tail pocket. I felt and discovered a glass ball. With a petulant expression, I flung it into the street. Gip said nothing. For a space, neither of us spoke. "Dada," said Gip at last, "that was a proper shop." Came round with that to the problem of just how the whole thing seemed to him. He looked completely undamaged. So far, good. He was neither scared nor unhinged. He was simply tremendously satisfied with the afternoon's entertainment, and there in his arms were 4 parcels. Confound it, what could be in them? I said, "Little boys can't go to shops like that every day." He received this with his usual stoicism, and for a moment I was sorry I was his father and not his mother, so I couldn't suddenly there, coram publico in our handsome kiss him. After all, I thought, the thing wasn't so very bad. But only when we opened the parcels that I really began to be reassured. 3 of them contained boxes of soldiers, quite ordinary, lead soldiers, but of no so good as quality to make Gip altogether forget originally these parcels had been magic tricks of only the genuine sort. And the 4th contained a kitten, a little living white kitten in excellent health and appetite and temper. I saw this unpacking with a sort of provisional relief. I hung about in the nursery for quite an unconscionable time. It happened 6 months ago, and now I'm living to believe it's all right. The kitten had only the magical nature to all kittens, and the soldiers seemed as steady as a company as any colonel could desire. And Gip, the intelligent parent, will understood that I have to go cautiously with Gip. But I went so far around this one day, and I asked, how would you like your soldiers to come alive, Gip, and march about by themselves?" "Mine do," said Gip. "I just have to say a word I know before I open the lid." "Then they march about alone?" "Oh, quite, Dada. I shouldn't like them if they didn't do that." I displayed no unbecoming surprise, and since then I have taken occasion to drop upon them once and twice, unannounced, while the soldiers were about. But so far I've never discovered them performing anything like a magical manner. It's so difficult to tell. There's also this question of finance. I have an incurable habit of paying bills. I've been up and down Regent Street several times looking for that shop. I'm inclined to think, indeed, that the manner of honor is satisfied, and that, since Gip's name and address is known to them, I may very well leave it to these people, whomever they may be, to send the bill in their own time. And that's the end of The Magic Shop by H.G. Wells. I hope you all had a good time listening to that one. Ah. You absolute monster. But thank you so much. How dare you?